Hello, Brickmill Elementary School. This is Dan Tricarico, and I am author of a book called The Zen Teacher, Creating Focus, Simplicity, and Tranquility in the Classroom. And I want to thank you for inviting me to come and talk to you today. I want to thank Dr. Feathers for asking me to be here. I am honored to be here. And she asked me to talk to you a little bit about reducing stress and improving self-care in your teaching practice and hopefully your personal life as well. And I know you might be thinking, well, what does this guy know? Why are we listening to him? So I want to start by telling you a little bit about how I got here and why I might have a few things to say about it. And I just decided to treat this like a live video, so forgive me for any bumps or hiccups along the way. And I just want to share with you some of the concepts that I think might help you as the year starts to wear on and the stress starts to rise, that maybe some techniques or activities or strategies you can use to reduce that stress and make sure you're taking care of yourself. Well, I'll tell you, I just finished last year my 24th year teaching in the same school, really in the same classroom, which is amazing. I'm an English teacher at West Hills High School in Santee, California, which is a suburb of San Diego, where I was born and raised. And I think that one thing I want to tell you, the first thing I want to tell you is that what we do, I feel, is just about the most noble job on the planet. We have a ripple effect across the future that is incalculable. And I have always been very proud of that, and I have loved every minute of what I have done. That is why what started happening a few years ago became such a great concern to me. I looked around and I saw all these wonderful teachers I had seen teaching for years, melting down and burning out and leaving the profession. And I thought, I can't do that. I need to make it through to retirement. In fact, I probably don't have any other marketable skills. So I need to make sure that I can make it through retirement. And I thought, how am I going to do this? And I thought back to when I was a drama major, and in all of the acting classes that we took, the acting teachers talked about something they called a relaxed preparedness. It meant you were relaxed, but you were ready to perform. You were calm, but you were ready to go. And we achieved that by talking about things like meditation, relaxation exercises, present moment awareness, which is about being in the moment, and mindfulness, and all of these strategies that I thought, this is what teachers need to reduce that stress and continue on. And so I started a blog called The Zen Teacher, which can be found at thezenteacher.com if you're interested in that. And eventually that kind of changed and morphed into a book that I just showed you. And I have been amazed at the response to the message that I'm trying to talk about, because I can tell you that I woefully underestimated the amount of stress that teachers face, because as I'm sure you know, lots of requirements are heaped on us, and we kind of sometimes are wondering, where am I going to put all this stuff? I only have so many hours in a day. I only have so much energy. How am I going to do it all? But as teachers and as givers, because teachers are givers, we always seem to find some way. But what I was noticing is that sometimes it was at the expense of our own sanity, of our own relaxation, of our own rejuvenation. And I decided it was kind of part of my message and part of my mission to kind of change that for teachers, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really see that care and support coming from anywhere else. So I thought, I'll do what I can to provide that for teachers. So I want to talk about some strategies and some activities that will help you reduce that stress. Okay, first thing is, as an elementary school, you know the importance of permission slips when you go on a field trip. Am I right? You know that if you're going to take your kids on a field trip, you have to have a signed permission slip from the parent. Why is this so important? Well, because it makes it real, it's binding, it gives the event weight and gravity. So it becomes this thing that everybody respects and honors. So the first thing I want to tell you is we need to give ourselves permission to take care of ourselves. Nobody else is going to do it. Nobody else is going to give us permission. So that permission has to come from us. We need to sign our own permission slips. So the first thing you can do is give yourself permission with grace and without guilt. That's an important thing. Without guilt, and I know it's hard, to say, it's okay that I'm taking care of myself. This is something that I'm now going to value from here on out. And you know that when you write that permission slip for your students to go on that field trip, it makes it a real thing and they're able to do it. So you need to give yourself permission. So permission is the first thought, the first concept I want to share with you. The second one is I want to break down for you the idea of what I call intentional and radical self-care. Now, radical self-care was an idea that I kind of stole from a writer named Anne Lamott, who I think is an amazing writer. And I added the word intentional, and I want to break those words down for you. By intentional, I mean on purpose. It's a choice. Self-care is a choice that we choose to make because we value our own energies, our own resources, and we want to make sure that they are not depleted. So we have to make choices on purpose to take care of ourselves. It's not, if we wait, as we often do, for things to happen randomly, serendipitously, it's not going to happen. We have to be intentional about our self-care choices. Nobody's going to come up to me and say, you know what, Danny, you look like you could use a nap. Nobody's going to say that. I have to choose that for myself. So that's the intentional piece. The radical piece is this. Radical means not usual, out of the status quo, out of the ordinary. And in this go, 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 type A, always on 24/7 culture where we're all glued to our devices all the time and we're texting, it can be radical, it can be subversive, it can be a rebellious act to take care of ourselves. And you've probably noticed this, and that's why some of us are reluctant to do that. We don't want to take care of ourselves because it might bother somebody or it might put somebody out. But that's okay. Be a rebel, be subversive. Choose to take care of yourself and know that you're going to get some funny looks. It's going to be subversive. You're going to be a little bit of a rebel, and that's okay, and you need to do it without guilt. Okay, the next concept I want to talk to you about is the concept of mindfulness. And I could do a 5-day retreat, exercise, workshop, seminar, hootenanny, all about mindfulness because it's a huge thing and it's a huge buzzword now. And I told my vice principal a couple of years ago, I said in a couple of years, mindfulness is going to be all over education. But what I decided to do, because we only have a few minutes here, is to share with you a specific exercise that I actually developed. And I will tell you that I may have developed it, maybe I came up with it, but I use it and it really works. And as you probably know, in education, there just simply are not enough acronyms. Am I right? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, right? So I thought, I'm going to make up my own. I want my own acronym for this message that I'm sharing with teachers. And I call this a basic exercise in mindfulness. And wrong side. You can see that behind me, I have put up the acronym BASIC, B-A-S-I-C. And I'm going to tell you what those letters stand for, and hopefully you can use that as a model for a way to deal with that stress when you feel it kind of rising up. The first letter B stands for breath. Breath is the most fundamental unit of existence there is. It is how we exist. So it's such a fundamental thing. The first step is to get in touch with your breath impulse, your breath rhythm, and you just start breathing. Sometimes that's all it takes. It's just one breath to feel a little calmer. But the first step in the basic exercise is to get in touch with that breath. I just took one breath. I already feel calmer. The A is for acknowledgement. And it just means acknowledge what's happening. Say, I feel stressed. I'm feeling a little anxious, and here's why. Now, the key here is you do it non-judgmentally. You don't say, I feel stressed and I shouldn't, or I feel stressed because that person's a jerk. You just say, this is stressful, I'm feeling anxious. You just call it like it is and let it be what it is without judgment. The S stands for stillness. This is probably one of the most challenging elements, is we have to find a way to just be still. Maybe a time or a place to get away for a minute, just to calm down, be in tune with our breath, and think about why is this happening and what is going on, which has to do with the I. Because what we do is we tune into our intuition. That's that little voice inside that tells you what's going on and tells you what direction you should or should not go. Now, guess what? I wrote a blog post called Intuition Doesn't Scream, because it doesn't. Intuition whispers. So how do you listen to it? You have to be still. That's what the S is for. So once you're still, you listen to the intuition, say, what is it telling me? Maybe that person said something that offended me. So why am I offended? And then your intuition can lead you to an answer to that. Maybe you're having a bad day, and when you get still, you say, why am I having a bad day? And your intuition can inform you on that. I had a fight with my spouse. Then your intuition can tell you that your spouse is right. No, I'm just kidding. But if you tune into that intuition, you're going to get some information. Data is very important in education these days, right? And you're going to get some data about what is happening and what you can do about it. Now, the C stands for compassion, and I think this is probably the most important part of the exercise. And there's two types. One is compassion towards others. If that person said something that annoyed you, you need to give that person some grace and some love and some compassion and say, man, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe something happened to them that I'm unaware of. Maybe they're going through some stuff that I don't know about. Okay? But more importantly, you need to give some compassion to yourself. And I think teachers, frankly, are not very good at this. You need to look at yourself and say, okay, I got in tune with my breath. I acknowledged that I'm stressed. I got still. I listened to my intuition. I did everything Dan said to do. I gave the other person some grace and some compassion. But now I need to forgive myself that I wasn't perfect. I need to forgive myself that I yelled or I raised my voice or I was impatient with my own children because I get paid to have patience with other people's children, or whatever it is. You need to give yourself self-compassion, and I think that that's something that all teachers, myself included, need to get better at. So that's a basic exercise in mindfulness, and I hope that that helps you as the stress starts to increase over the course of the year. The fourth thing I'm going to tell you about is a concept called pamper triggers. And I kind of came up with this idea myself too, and I'll tell you why. About a year or so ago, the word triggers, became a buzzword. Right around 2016, everybody was being triggered, and it was setting people off. And I thought it was a very negative term, and it applied to a very serious and real and legitimate thing. But I thought, no, I'm going to hijack that term, and I'm going to make it positive. So I came up with the idea of pamper triggers. And here's the beauty part. We all have them. And the idea is to think about, what are your pamper triggers? What are the things that make you feel soothed, taken care of, and comforted? And again, we all have them. For me, I know one of my pamper triggers is slippers. I love wearing slippers. So what did I do? Eventually I said, well, why, I can't wear slippers to work, but I went the next time I needed to get shoes and I got loafers. I'm done with laces. So now I always feel like I'm wearing slippers, right? And because I know that's one of the things that makes me feel comforted, soothed, and taken care of. Hot buttered popcorn is another thing I love, and it's tied to some very positive family memories I had back when I was a kid, where the whole family would gather around the big pot of popcorn, big bowl of popcorn, and we would all scarf it down and watch Welcome Back, Kotter or Starsky and Hutch. Only the old people are going to know what I'm talking about. But it was tied to that very positive family memory, and so I have popcorn almost every night, because it makes me feel soothed and because I like it. So you need to ask yourself, what are your pamper triggers? And how can, and most importantly, here's the important question, how can I spend more time there? How can I spend more time with my pamper triggers? Another example of a pamper trigger for me is in San Diego. There is an iconic park called Balboa Park, and I absolutely love it. I feel so at peace and so calm there that this last summer I said, it's a goal for me to make it to Balboa Park once a week. And I went 8 or 9 times. So on average, I made it. And I cannot tell you, I cannot articulate how much calmer and more peaceful I felt, because I was able to get to experience that pamper trigger based on that goal that I set. So find out what your pamper triggers are and figure out a way to spend more time there. And again, that probably goes all the way back to number 1, and giving yourself more permission to do that. Okay. A last thought that I want to share with you is the idea of gratitude. And gratitude is probably one of the oldest concepts in the world. You could go back to the beginning of all time, and gratitude is going to be there. And there's a couple ideas I want to share with you about gratitude. First of all, if you're focused on what you're grateful for, it's very difficult to be unhappy, because you're focused on what's going well and you're focused on what you have instead of what you don't have. And there's a lot of ways to keep track of what you're grateful for. Some people use a gratitude jar where they'll write little slips of paper and put it in a jar. And at the end of the year, they open the jar and they look at all the things and reflect back on the things that they were grateful for over the course of the year. I tried that, was okay, just didn't totally work for my style. Other people write it in a journal. They'll journal for 5 minutes every day and write about what they're grateful for. That's not bad. I tried that. What's working for me right now that I really enjoy is I have a journal, and it has my to-do list and my ideas and the events I have to do and all of that kind of on my calendar. And it's like a little planner. And I'll write MG and EG, and that stands for morning gratitude and evening gratitude. And as I go through the course of my day, I'll reflect back and say, okay, this morning that happened and that was really cool. So I'm going to write that under morning gratitude, just one quick sentence. And then in the evening, I'll look back on my day as I'm planning the next day or whatever, and I'll write a little EG, a little evening gratitude. Just one little thing that happened that evening, say from lunch on, that I was grateful for. And then I can look back on those pages whenever I want and really go, wow, some great things are happening. So the other thing about gratitude is don't forget to be grateful for the basics and the things that we take for granted every day. I started really noticing this when I turned on the faucet in the kitchen and the water started coming out, and I was like, wow, there are some places that clean water is not available. And living where I live and being blessed to live in the time and the place that I live, I don't have to worry about that. So I made it a point to be intentionally grateful about the clean water that I have access to, about the house and the roof over my head, about having a job. When I have so many friends who work in other fields and they're laid off occasionally, and they have to have long periods of unemployment where they're looking for another job, and my job is relatively secure and I have one. So don't forget to be grateful for the basics. It's always worth acknowledging that those things are there and that we have them and that we should be grateful for them. So just as a quick review, I want you to give yourself permission without guilt to take care of yourself this year. I want you to remember the difference between intentional and radical self-care. I want you to remember, again, wrong side, the basic exercise in mindfulness. I want you to remember the idea of your pamper triggers. And I want you to be grateful for all kinds of things and find ways to acknowledge that gratitude, even if it's a simple sentence like just you could be walking down the street or at a red light or jot it down on a 3x5 card on your desk and pin it to your laptop and say, I'm grateful for this, or I appreciate that. Or if you come from a faith-based system, say, dear God, thank you for this. Okay? It's however it works for you. But those are just some strategies and some ideas about how you can persevere and endure in what is sometimes a very stressful profession, as I'm sure you know, and a very anxiety-provoking profession, but in my humble opinion, IMHO, as they say online, one of the best and most noble professions on the face of the planet. So I'm Dan Tricarico. I'm known online as the Zen Teacher. I have a closed Facebook group that you're happy, I'm happy to have you join if you search for that. I have a Zen Teacher page on Facebook. I'm at thezenteacher.com. I'm on Twitter. There's all kinds of ways to join in the Zen Teacher conversation. You also can find a free online course for self-care at www.zenprocourses.com, and that's short for Zen Professional Courses. And there's a free one and a paid one, but I definitely want to give back to the education community by providing a free one, zenprocourses.com. But also feel free to join the Facebook group. There's over 400 teachers in there from all over the world, and we're a super supportive group, and we can help you in your self-care practice. And again, have a great year, and thanks for letting me be here. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here and help. Take care.